It's that time of year again when I dive into all the best of Payday 2's mod creations to highlight the downloads you need to try out to spice up your game. But this year, I've been reminded that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. For every wonderfully crafted Almir character pack, seriously, why is this thing so well made? There's another mod that's got a little more sinister intent. No, I don't mean that. Of course, I'm talking about the mods which can be used to cheat within Payday 2, whether that was their intentional design or not. Today I'm going to go somewhere few creators have in the past, daring to delve into the taboo topic of Payday's so-called cheat mods. Let me start by saying how difficult it is to actually define what can be labelled as a cheat or hack within Payday 2. While some are incredibly straightforward, allowing you to level instantly to 100 or end a heist without actually playing it, others are much more insidious and weren't necessarily created with the intent to imbalance the game, or more problematically, ruin others' experience with it, but do so due to developer oversight or player misuse. I hardly need to cover the more renowned cheat bundles that you might see blatant cheaters using online. If you're going out your way to install the likes of Pirate Perfection, which has been around since what feels like day one, you know exactly what you're signing up for. I won't be able to get through to you, and although you may have fun with the cheat menus for some time, in the long run you're cheapening your experience with the game's content. It's this attitude towards instant gratification that I actually think can be attributed to the use of a lot of Payday 2's more hotly contested add-ons, which I'll touch on more later. At the opposite end of the spectrum, I've also heard people call out HUD mods as functional cheats for granting a fairly undebatable advantage over players without them. Here's where it can get a little contentious, as I personally endorse many of these HUDs, which I genuinely believe positively impact my enjoyment with the game and are simply a direct improvement of a function which is already performed by Payday 2 as standard. So the question remains, where do we draw the line? To help work this out, let's have a look at Overkill's stance on the topic, which has always been quite simple. As Almir said back in February 2016, when it comes to modding and potentially cheating, use common sense. Whilst the team are developing the game in a way they want it to be played, modding exists so that players can choose to play the game they want to play. Well, let's not forget Overkill has outwardly supported the modding community before, both verbally and financially. With that in mind, you never need to worry about installing mods in fear of a ban, and will only earn the cheater tag by completing actions in-game that can be easily tracked as impossible for your account, such as hosting locked DLC heists or picking up more than one bag at a time. With that said, I believe what Almir is calling for here requires some slightly more nuanced discussion, as just because you won't be branded a cheater for doing something doesn't mean it's actually okay to do. The community's approach to abusable mods in Payday 2 needs to be more pragmatic in line with this. In many ways, I stand by Overkill's statement on the topic. Remember, even though Payday 2 is a cooperative game and you can't negatively impact other players' experience in the aggressively game-breaking ways you can in those with competitive multiplayer, what you do within a public lobby will have a knock-on effect on the players you're heisting with. Most apparently, there are mods out there which allow you to explicitly grief other players, which really are the worst of the worst as far as cheats are concerned in my opinion. But also, if you choose to run a weapon mod that deals infinite damage or turns god mode on, others will feel the backdraft. I'd be pretty disappointed heisting on a map with no living targets to shoot at, the essential component of an FPS game, or if my mistakes and failures were made effectively irrelevant due to someone being impervious to damage. Imagine how gutted you'd feel to find out that the achievement you just earned fighting your way through the likes of Goat Simulator on DSOD was tainted by some jackass who hijacked your run to carry you, when all they're really carrying are bundles of insecurity and a few naughty add-ons in their mods folder. In my opinion, this extends further than you may be initially thinking. Some mods are fairly innocuous as an experienced player. Meth Helper is a great example of this. It's a mod which I could download to allow me to run Cock-Off without having to listen for Bane's instructions every minute, meaning I could feasibly chill out and listen to some music whilst grinding levels in my favourite game. Perfect, right? And to tell you the truth, whilst it is somewhat of an unfair advantage you're giving yourself, I don't actually have a tremendous problem with players doing this solo or with friends. As long as everyone's having fun, who the hell cares? However, imagine being a new player experiencing rats for the first time. Whilst you're never going to get that true release Payday experience when Bane could literally get the ingredient order wrong, you may get suckered into dropping the wrong compound in by his initial guess, creating one of the must-have experiences within Payday 2, and even allowing you to complete the rest of the heist in a completely different way. Someone with Meth Helper installed may not feel like they're spoiling anyone else's experience here, but there are moments in Payday 2 that every player should have equal access to, and just by hosting the wrong lobby with the wrong mods installed, even if they seem quite innocent, you can take away those moments which make the game so special. Then there's also the lesser issue of ruining the game for yourself. Harking back to the XP Booster mod, I can feasibly gain enough experience to go infamous after a single jewelry store. Because I'd rather not cheat myself out of the newly introduced Infamy 4.0 leveling process, I'm doing this whilst already at level 100, but you can see from just the Continental coins I gain. For simply completing Election Day in under 5 minutes, this cheat completely removes the sense of weighted progression within Payday 2. Whilst this is only going to impact your experience with the game, making it far less of an evil than impacting others' time with Payday, I'd still wholeheartedly recommend against ever making use of it. Not only will it inflate expectations of your abilities, making you appear more experienced than you are and actually lead to more derision than praise online, it will also rob you of that sense of accomplishment you get when achieving an incredibly tough goal. Whilst it's a slap in the face for those out there leveling legitimately, I don't want to appeal to your sense of honour as a would-be cheater. I'd rather just point out that you're likely making your time with the game worse inadvertently. Put it this way, I can assure you you'll remember every hour you spend achieving your infamy goal, whatever it may be, with more fondness than the few you put into leveling with cheats installed. Doing so with this sort of fast track method will only diminish the number of things you can strive for in game, making brilliant updates such as Infamy 4.0 effectively irrelevant. I believe even if you keep your cheating ways private, the only person truly cheated at that point is yourself. That said, I'm going to quickly run you through my thoughts on the usual suspects at this point in the video, but as I touched on earlier, I think the use of many of these mods can be boiled down to a short versus long-term outlook. Do you want to remember the struggle and hardship of completing the likes of Goat Sim or Lab Rats, or do you want the instant gratification of a shiny badge saying you've done it, which you'll forget about in a couple of days? This is Carry Stacker, a mod which is the poster child for this sort of attitude. It aims to functionally remove issues with what I do believe is a flawed bag carrying system, but does so bluntly that it may as well be removing an entire feature of objective difficulty from the game. Don't get me wrong, I play Payday 2 solo a lot, and do believe its bag mechanics leave plenty to be desired. It encourages repetitive gameplay, was only really designed with multiplayer in mind, and feels fairly archaic for 2022. I do expect Payday 3 to develop looting mechanics, likely by providing more ways to secure the loot and varied ways to carry it. Carry Stacker, however, might as well be removing the system altogether. Yes, you can adjust the settings, and I don't blame the mod creator for much of this. They were just earnestly trying to tackle a part of the Payday gameplay loop that many didn't find enjoyable. But let's be honest, when someone commits to using this mod, they go all out. Weightless bags that can be stacked ad infinitum. Whilst I don't think it's the worst possible offender, it does completely change the gameplay flow for all involved in the heist and trivialises many of the most challenging missions in the game. It also tampers with the intended XP and money flow, meaning you will be cutting down the infamy loot sizably, again rolling into a mod potentially reducing your enjoyment and time spent with the game overall. Better Bots is another mod I often see vilified in the same way. I'm personally not too sure how to feel about it though. When Better Bots was originally released, Payday's Team AI system was absolutely insufficient. We had access to just 2 bots when playing solo, both of which being made of paper, hopelessly incompetent at traversing the map, and uncustomizable in terms of their weaponry and appearance. Fast forward several years and we suddenly have 3 AI bots wielding LMGs who also give players invaluable perk boosts, can shoot through shields and even perform clutch revives with Inspire. It would be fair to say Payday's Team AI at this point is often more useful than real co-op players, which is indicative of quite some overtuning and a breakdown of the original 4-player co-op vision. Let's be honest, 2 human players and 2 AI is probably the sweet spot for Death Sentence completion anyway. So if we throw Better Bots into the mix, things get even easier still, which understandably frustrates players who want to play the game without a few bots stealing all their kills, as well as diminishing the perceived achievement of completing a difficult challenge whilst the mod is installed. I take no issue with the improved pathing or general bot functionality, but I'm always impressed when modders create systems which function better than those actually implemented by Overkill. But this mod goes a little too far with its customizable settings, lending Mod Workshop its cheat workshop moniker. No, bots should not be able to dodge bullets, have virtually infinite health or react to enemies instantly. However, they probably should be able to call for healing at low health, melee enemies, and throw grenades every once in a while. That really is the duality of better bots. It does so much to improve the team AI design from a technical perspective, then goes a bit too far with the naughty sauce and turns them into goddamn Terminators. If you want some of the pathing improvements without the steroids on top, Keepers is a decent option for you to try out. I genuinely marvel at what better bots showcases from our talented Payday 2 mod teams, and think it's far from the worst offender on the list, bearing in mind that playing with Team AI tends to indicate solo play, thus won't be impacting the enjoyment of others, but I do think it goes that bit too far in the settings. Not to mention, this mod also buffs the equally overpowered jokers, meaning it certainly can be used online to reduce the active difficulty of death sentence and again hurt other players indirectly. I'm going to talk about game rebalancers and custom perk decks now, which are actually some of my favourite mod types in the game, but are certainly a sticking point when it comes to discussions of cheating legitimate achievements. Do I believe that every player who uses these rebalancers and perk decks does so in good faith, testing out cool new mechanics in their own time within solo lobbies? No, people do use these to cheat wildly online, but I'd argue that those players would look for a way to cheat regardless. Custom perk decks just happen to be low-hanging fruit that keep their conscience clear. No, I say that custom perk decks and entire game overhauls should be supported by the community irrespective of a few scumbags abusing them to impress strangers online. The creativity of modders should be embraced wherever possible, lest we forget, Payday 2 already has some pretty overpowered perk deck concepts in the game. I've had a ton of fun playing around with the likes of the Predator perk deck and Hitman Rebalance. I've even showcased entire game rebalancers in my annual mod video. This is a perfect example of mods extending the fun that can be had with the game rather than stifling it. Yes, there can be a few overtuned ones, not everyone's blessed with a talent for balancing game stats, but I feel for the most part these custom creations come from a point of genuine passion for the game and are brilliant fun for messing around with solo or with a group of friends online. The key when you do try these things out is to provide legitimate feedback for the modders to tweak and tune their creations in line with the point of balance. We need to be the QA teams these independent creators lack. Overall, I'd say this category of mod absolutely falls into the Overkill definition of fun enhancers that are absolutely fine to use within the right setting. Finally, we have to talk about Silent Assassin. I know I've overlooked dozens of controversial mods people would like to hear my opinion on, but once again, everything needs to be considered on a case-by-case and setting basis, meaning we'd be here all day if I covered all of the usual suspects. But I needed to get SA in here, probably the most hotly debated cheat mod in Payday 2's history. Once again, I think it's possible to have a nuanced take on this. No one has to be a villain for disliking Payday 2's current stealth system. Let's be honest, whilst fairly balanced, it can feel restrictive and certainly limits creativity at times. I've already talked extensively about how I'd like to see Payday's entire stealth setup be overhauled in Payday 3, and within the confines of Payday 2, Silent Assassin takes a fair stab at trying to tackle what makes stealth sometimes feel so stunted. By preventing pages from going off if you take out a guard whilst undetected, you add another, more aggressive playstyle within stealth, allowing you to clear entire maps of guards if you're willing to approach the heist lethally from the shadows. Theoretically, this also adds long-range weaponry such as snipers to your stealth arsenal, which I can really appreciate, and standing on its own, this mod sounds sick. But then you remember the game it's in. Payday 2's stealth AI is absolutely appalling. They have incredibly limited pathing, inconsistent view range, and can even be ragdolled for miles. Okay, that one isn't a criticism, but what I'm trying to point out here is that if you have even a remote understanding of how the guards tend to move around in Payday 2, you will be able to clear out even the most populated heist in minutes, trivializing stealth to the point of obsolescence. Now, if guards responded to missing patrols, actively communicated with each other, or exhibited adaptive AI, hell, if they even had functioning eyes, this mod may work and be relatively balanced. But without all of those things, the pager system needs to exist for stealth to offer any sort of consistent challenge to the player. This is why I have no animosity towards the people who enjoy Silent Assassin. I can appreciate the desire to change up Payday 2's rigid stealth experience, but simply don't believe that's possible within the confines of the current engine whilst retaining any sort of challenging integrity. As ever, when you solo or with friends, there are far greater crimes than trying out Silent Assassin, but do know that SA completions should always be easier than within vanilla stealth, so if you want to earn your achievements with pride, consider only testing out this mod once you've completed the heist on DSOD stealth at least once. Just quickly glancing over at the mod's settings, Silent Assassin does attempt to help you match with other SA users online, which is a nice setting to offer, avoiding the potential of forcing the mod on non-consenting heisters. But this should really be permanently enforced, and whilst you can make things a little harder for yourself by reducing the number of pages available or the detection threshold to make the pager go off, few people install this mod with the intent to challenge themselves further, let's be honest. Silent Assassin tries to not be so divisive, yet has ended up being the poster child for public lobby cheat arguments, and I think that's a shame, but somewhat unavoidable. I'm sorry to those out there who despise these mods and have had negative experiences playing with abuses of them online. I can absolutely empathise. But as you can probably tell, it's not in my nature to share that same hardline view. I simply don't believe that anything with regards to this topic is as black and white as it may seem. Let me give you an example. One of the mods I've used over the past few years is the Free Flight Camera mod. This allows me to no-clip the camera around any heist to take screenshots or cinematic zoom-ins for video creation purposes. It even allows me to slow down or speed up the gameplay, and was a massive tool in the creation of the Story of Payday series. I couldn't have done it without it. However, by almost any stretch of the definition, this can be a cheat mod. You see, I can teleport my heister to wherever the camera is placed, brilliant for otherwise impossible screenshots, but also for placing myself outside of the map, away from potential damage, or hell, even straight to the end of a heist for instant completion. Yeah, that's not fair, right? Yet this is an incredible creation that I couldn't do without, and this really is the message of the video. Not everything can or should be labelled as a cheat, and not every player should be automatically perceived as a cheater. Payday 2 is an old game at this point. Many of us have thousands of hours in it. Of course we'll want to experiment from time to time. But on the other side of the coin, just because we've played the game for far too long doesn't mean everyone has, and neither does it mean that experienced players have the right to dictate which mods are acceptable and which mods aren't. There has to be give and take here. My advice, if you're playing publicly, is to be transparent with people. Only use cosmetic mods wherever possible, and share the wonders of HUD mods with those who are unaware of them. In your own time, or when playing in private lobbies with friends, honestly, go hog wild. Some of my favourite memories playing Payday 2 have been messing around with busted custom perk decks on crazily imbalanced custom heists with Shrek body pillows. Don't cheat yourself out of these amazing times of the game, but also don't cheat other players out of the vanilla experience they've signed up for as far as you know. I don't think it needs to get much more complicated than that. Obviously, I've already warned about how even cheating privately can lead to you having less fun with the game in the long term, but I certainly can't tell you not to. Each to their own. Just keep in mind that Payday has thousands of hours worth of content, and condensing that down to a few minutes won't leave the sweet taste you're hoping for. Over the years, Payday has had issues around cheating within the community, but I'm noticing a recent movement, at least within my own community, towards inclusivity, openness when discussing mod choices, and a tendency to seek out challenge. This is in stark contrast with what hacks and cheats promote, and leaves me optimistic that despite its age, Payday 2 is still a game with hours and hours of worthwhile vanilla content to experience, as well as wild and wacky mods to be created and enjoyed. I don't want either side of the community to be stifled by these conversations, and hope both continue to grow and develop as the twilight of Payday 2 provides the perfect bridge into Payday 3's eventual release. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm sure the comment section is going to be wild with opinions on what is a pretty divisive topic, but I'll be down there diving into the debate alongside you. For everyone else, I'll see you all very soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.